Everyone, I'm Selena for Who is Jesus Today. Well, I have a few things to say today and then I will be on my way. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say in my life, throughout my journey as a human being, and then coming to understand more and more the heart of God through His Word and His love. First, He has shown me and taught me what it is to walk out His love. And it's ongoing, and you never, I say you never graduate in this, but it's ongoing, and you learn and you grow as you learn. But I want to say that there's times when God has put in my heart to stand with certain people or a person and a nation, and I just felt I have to stand up for this because this is what God's put in my heart. I remember there was a long season in my life where I was helping refugees settle in the United States of America. That's right, refugees, especially from I began to work with a population in an area called Red Lion. That's in this city of Philadelphia. Red Lion, that area is known to have a large Russian, Ukraine population, as well as people from Georgia and just from the former Soviet Union regime. And I was working with a lot of the older population that have now found themselves here in the U.S. As refugees and did not have understanding of English, just really a minimum. And my goal, I was actually working with a Jewish organization called Omni. Yes, and I would help these refugee populations. A lot of them were women, to be able to survive. To be able, you take this for granted, how important it is to be able to tell the police that you're in trouble, and you're a woman and you have trouble even being able to say your name in the language where you are living. You could just imagine being in a country where you have no clue of the language, which is not good. If you're going to go anywhere, you're going to have to learn survival statements. And that's what I taught a lot of the refugee populations were survival, English, how to stay alive in English. That's number one. How do you stay alive in English out there in the street? And how do you get to the restroom? And if you, right, and it's stores you can find. Stores are everywhere. But, yeah. And you need to know how to count your money, to how to say it, because people can take advantage. And so refugees are really vulnerable populations. So, as I said, I work with various populations. When God assigns me and He calls me to them, it doesn't matter where they're from, I know that I have to be called at that time. So that's the former Soviet populations, and then also people from Somalia, not as much Ethiopia or Eritrea, but from Somalia, and what other places? Yeah, everywhere. Lots of times from different parts of China, Guangdong, say mainland, Hong Kong, Cambodia, just different populations. A lot of people actually were from Asian countries, and those were a lot of the refugee populations that I have work with, but you know that refugees represent all the continents. So I'm not saying that only these populations have of say refugees. It's easy for people to take what you say out of a context. I didn't work with every group of refugees around the world, so that would be in Africa, Asia, Europe, okay, parts of the Middle East, just about the world. Okay, just about the world. So, but you're not always going to be in a situation or a region where some of those populations are represented. When I was in Portland, Oregon, I was working more with the people from the continent of Africa. And also, I believe, maybe a little of Cambodia. So, yeah, Vietnam as well. And I'm just saying this because, and then as I said, my occupation and teaching and working in schools in the inner cities, and yes, and that was not only in Philadelphia. I've also worked in Boise, Idaho, too, with some schools. Yeah, that's where I had to learn how to become a woman of the wow, because see, I'm not so concerned about the people in the street. I have to make sure that I'm prepared for the big bad wolf, okay, and the cougars. That was a new world for me. I didn't think that animals of wild beasts can actually be on the road with you. You know, I did not think of such a thing in the cities. You know, now I have to think about a cougar. Okay. No, I rather try to survive in the city than to survive up against a cougar. But yeah, God's brought me through all of that, and I'm just kind of I'm opening up a little more about myself in life, and I think that it's time. I've been doing, say, YouTube now publicly almost a year, and I think everyone has a right of when they want to open up seasons of their lives and history. And yeah, you do run the risk of people trying to package you as a human being and your journey and your affiliations, and they may look at you and think you are, say, affiliated with something that you're not. You cannot help people you cannot stop any of us from thinking, right? We think, but because we think it doesn't make it true. Okay, that's something for all of us to keep in mind. We're not going to stop thinking stuff, you know. But also, when we put on the mind of Christ, we don't have to let our thinking go off the radar, you know, off the hook and stuff, you know. And then when you come to find out what's the real truth, it almost puts you like in a state of a shock wave, because what you were thinking was so far from the reality. Yeah, you know, so I think we all can go through that. And I just wanted to open that up, that when God tells me to stand with the widows and the orphans, then that's what I'm supposed to do. When He tells me to stand with the refugees, that's what I'm supposed to do. When He tells me to stand with the single moms in the inner cities in the U.S., that's what I'm supposed to do. When He tells me to encourage men of God to be open and in pursuit, being led by the Holy Spirit to some of the young men in your community who haven't had dads as a role model, then that's what I am going to do. I'm going to stand in that way. When He says to stand with other refugees, I need to stand with them. And I want to say this too before I start to lose some of the thoughts, right? So when God says to stand, you stand with them. When He says you need to pray and have a heart for Muslim women, I need to do that. I cannot consider public opinion, even from the church, if they're not for that or not, or a certain persuasion or population. You deal with that. That's you. you're free to be wherever you are and who you are. But when God tells me to stand, I have to stand with it. And so when God had put in my heart to stand and to say, yes, the people of Gaza, they need to be liberated. But how do they need to be liberated? You see, so I've given you some scenarios here and some of my journey, because in case you are interested. If you're not, you can just click and keep going, right? But if you are interested, yeah, that has been my journey, my heartbeat, and there's more of that to come. And yes, when I have traveled in these places, I've had accountability. I've been a link to a church, okay, with a pastor and leadership, yes. And I have been also engaging with other Christians. So I'm not out there all by myself, hiding out in the woods. Okay, yeah. All right. No, when I was in actually north of Philly, I was with a wonderful community, and I was able to be covered and we looked out for each other. But me being kind of the person that's really independent too, sometimes I will say go out on my little adventures, but I'll come back. Okay. And yeah, so I just want to say that. And in closing, I want to say this. When Israel was attacked in October, I was kind of quiet for a week about this on social media after the war broke out. And then I was feeling in my heart, are you going to be silent, or are you going to speak out for Israel? Are you only going to identify with Israel when it's going well, but how about when it's not going well, when she's in trouble? Will you still stand with Israel? Will you identify with Israel? And I want to say I had to make a decision while I was actually even doing a video, and I was saying in my heart, you prepared me for 2 years ago. I felt that I was felt prompted by God. If there was an attack on Israel and again the attack on Jews in the world, what would you do? Would you remain silent? That's like do I need something else to add on to the exclusion list? So anyway, I made my decision in the Lord by the grace of God. And that is, I represent the land of Israel in my history. And I'm not going to be very specific about all of that. And I also stand with the nation of Israel. I do. And I will continue to stand with Israel, not for just the sake of Israel, because the word of God lets me know. I will bless thee who bless thee, curse thee who curse thee. Now you may say, what's so special about the people? They're not any better, or no one's better than anyone. The thing we're talking about is the plan of God. How God calls out remnants and assigns certain remnants and people, right, to fulfill his plan of salvation for the nations. Why I stand with Israel? Because I stand with salvation for the nations of the world, the continents of the world. I stand with salvation in Yeshua, and therefore, yes, I stand with Israel. You can like and subscribe. Until next time, I'll tell you a little more if you're interested. If not, then thanks for stopping by. Much love in Yeshua. Shalom.